Hi, this is Rakesh Singh and I welcome you on this jQuery video session. Thank you so much for joining Naresh IT Technologies video session. In today's video session, we are going to discuss one of the most important aspect of the jQuery, that is jQuery selector. Means what is jQuery selector, how to use jQuery selector, what is the importance of jQuery selector in development of the JavaScript programming with jQuery functionality. As we have discussed in earlier video session, the jQuery has one feature called a DOM element selection function, through which any element of the document, HTML document, to be selected, and after the selecting the DOM element or elements to perform any particular functionality. So for that purpose, we need to discuss in more details about jQuery selectors. So what is the agenda of today's video session? Let us discuss about that. We will discuss about, first of all, jQuery selectors and what are the basic jQuery selectors are available in jQuery library script file. Second thing, we will discuss how to use selectors, means how to implement in our jQuery program in order to use it, and what are the different selectors in jQuery. Many types of selectors available in jQuery, but among the many types of selectors of jQuery, what are the major selectors in jQuery which most commonly used in our development. And the next, in today's video session, we will cover only one selector, that is hash ID selector in jQuery, that indicates to select one element with their an ID attribute value, and on that we will elaborate in more details about ID selectors in jQuery. So the next thing, what is a jQuery selector? You should know one very important thing. jQuery selector is the most important aspect of jQuery. Without jQuery selector, a single operation cannot be performed in the jQuery, because we have seen in an earlier video session, the basic syntax of jQuery is $selector dot action, means you would like to perform any action to a set of element which is already selected, either as a single element selected, either as a multiple element selected. So that element is going to be selected with the help of selector expression. That's what in today's video session we are going to discuss, what is jQuery selector. So a jQuery selector is a function which makes use of expression to find out matching elements from a DOM, nothing but document object model, based on the given criteria. So jQuery selector is a function which makes the use of some expression, it is also called selector expression, to find out some matching elements from a DOM based upon the given criteria, what condition given that. Simply you can say selectors are used to select either one element or more than one element, nothing but one or more HTML elements using jQuery. So single element can be selected or more elements can be selected, depends on our need. Once an element is selected by using jQuery selector function with selector expression, then we can perform various operations on that selected elements. So as I said in earlier video session also, the basic syntax of jQuery already we have learned. In order to perform any action, you must select a element or you must select elements, means you may perform the such various operation on single element or multiple elements. That required to be first of all selected, which can be selected by using the jQuery selector function with selector expression from a DOM. jQuery selectors are used to find, you can say, or select HTML elements based on their name, ID, classes, some types attributes, values of attributes, and much more. Means jQuery allows us to select the HTML element using their name, using their ID, using their classes, what classes used, using their types of elements, attributes of the element, values of the attributes, and many more. it's based on the existing CSS selector, and in addition it has some own custom selectors. So jQuery provides based on the existing CSS selectors as well as they have their own CSS selectors, nothing but custom selectors you can say. Now how to use jQuery selector in your application development whenever you write JavaScript program with jQuery functionality to perform various operations. The selectors are very useful and would be required at every step while using jQuery. You wanted to attach the event handler to the any element. So first of all, element has to be selected, then only you can attach an event handler. You want to manipulate some element. So in order to manipulate some element, first of all that element has to be selected, then only you can manipulate the element. You want to apply some effects, animations on the set of elements or one elements. So it means first of all element has to be selected. So at every step while writing the jQuery code, you are required to work on the selector, because unless until element is selected or elements are selected, you cannot perform any operations. So in order to select any elements, you must use jQuery selector. That is what in this point I am trying to elaborate. Selectors are very useful and would be required at every step while using jQuery. They get the exact element that you want from your HTML document. What exactly element you want from your HTML document, that you can get it, and on that you can perform any operation. So the basic syntax of using selector in jQuery is $selector.action. $selector.action means dollar is a jQuery selector function. Of course it is a shorthand notation of the actual function called jQuery, and selector is an expression through which it is going to find out, is going to select the HTML element from a DOM, and on that a corresponding action is going to be performed. So what is a dollar function? It is a jQuery selector function as shorthand notation of the actual function called jQuery function. What is the selector? It is an expression to find out the matching element or elements, nothing but one element or more than one element. What is the action? It is a method, it is nothing but function. So it is a method to perform any such operation on the selected element, which element is selected using jQuery selector. The action may be any event method also, like click event method, change event method, double click event method, load event method, etc. There are many event methods are there that also can be used as an action to attach the event handler to a set of element or a single element. So what is the basic syntax of using jQuery selector is nothing but simple syntax $selector.action. Dollar is a jQuery selector function and it is a shorthand notation of jQuery function used to select an element or elements with the help of selector expression. So selector here is nothing but expression to select, to find out element from the HTML DOM, and on that selected elements to perform some operation by using a action is nothing but method. So the next point to discuss in this video session is different selectors in jQuery. There are plenty of selectors in jQuery available. We will discuss one by one all in upcoming video session, but in this video session we are going to discuss about the major selectors of jQuery which are the most commonly used in real-time development. So there are the following few basic selectors in jQuery. I am discussing in this video session basic selectors in jQuery. Those basic selectors are 5. Number 1, that is called ID selector, which is going to use by using the hash symbol, hash of ID, value of any element ID attribute, that indicates to select a single element which matches with an ID attribute value of any element. So it selects a single element which matches with the given ID attribute. Second one, element selector, nothing but it is used to select element by using their element tag name. In that case, it can find out only one element which match with the tag name, or it may find out more than one element which match with the tag name. There is a possibility of selecting more than one elements. So it selects all elements which matches with the given element tag name. Third one is nothing but class selector. This is also very important. It is going to select all the elements which uses a class of class name what it has been specified. And in this select expression, what class name is specified, that must be start with the dot symbol. So it selects all elements which matches with the given class. Fourth one, all selectors, nothing but it is going to define with a star. It selects all elements available in a DOM. Doesn't matter what ID attribute, doesn't matter what element tag name uses, doesn't matter what class uses, no. It selects all the elements in a DOM. Whichever elements are present in the DOM, every elements are going to be selected by using a simple selector expression, nothing but star. Now the next one, fifth one, multiple selector, means more than one element of the same type, of the different type, with the different selector expression also can be selected by specifying a various selector with a comma separator. Like observe over here, selector 1 comma selector 2 comma selector n, nothing but n number of selectors. This selector can be a suppose ID attribute, this selector can be element, this selector can be a class. Means at a time it is going to select the element with this selector as well as this selector as well as this selector, and is going to return a one single jQuery object. So it selects the combined results of all the specified selectors. So this is one of the very important selectors. In order to select more than one element of different selector types at a time, then we call as what, multiple selectors. So they are the different selectors in jQuery as basic selectors. Among these all 5 selectors, in today's video session we are going to discuss only one selector, that is called as a ID selector. And in upcoming video session we will discuss one by one element selector, class selector, all selector, multiple selectors. But today we will discuss only one selector, that is called ID selector. So first one, select element by ID in jQuery, nothing but by using ID selector, that we use $of hash ID attribute value. So whenever you want to select a single element, any element, by using their ID attribute value, it must start with the hash. So this is a what category? Selectors. Which selectors category? Basic selector category. So ID selector comes under what? Basic selector category. It is used to select a single element with the given ID attribute value. To find an HTML element by ID, if anybody asks how to find out an HTML element by using their ID, then you must say it is possible by using jQuery hash ID selector. So whenever a requirement come in our program of the JavaScript using jQuery functionality to perform any operation to a single element by finding out using their an ID, then you must prefer and you must use one jQuery selector, that is called ID selector. So how to use? jQuery of hash ID use or $of hash ID use. Means you select the one element with an ID attribute value using jQuery of hash ID, that is the actual function of selector, or you can use shorthand notation $of hash ID, it is going to select an element and return a jQuery object. So use hash character to select element by ID. This point you must remember. Always use hash character or hash symbol, you can say, to select element by ID attribute. It is a rule in jQuery library script file. What is the ID? An ID to search for is specified via the ID attribute of an element. ID here nothing but the ID attribute value through which we are going to search and get the one element which returns a single jQuery object, and on that any operation going to be performed. Then we have to understand there are some important points before we implement jQuery ID selector practically and to see the example how it is going to use. So point number 1, jQuery hash ID selector uses the JavaScript function document.getElementById function. So if you are going to work with the jQuery ID selector, internally this ID selector uses JavaScript function. I hope you have heard earlier, or maybe have been implemented in your JavaScript programming, document.getElementById. jQuery ID selector is the most efficient among all jQuery selectors. If you know the ID of an element that you want to find out. So if you have already knowledge, I want to find out one element which uses this ID, then best option always go with ID selector. Then always use the ID selector, and it is going to find out only one element. Calling jQuery function or dollar function with an ID selector as its argument will return a jQuery object. So remember that jQuery selector is going to select element and return as a always jQuery object, which is wrapped of the raw DOM object on which any jQuery function, nothing but action, can be applied, containing a collection of either 0 element or one DOM element. So dollar of hash of ID will return a jQuery object with collection of 0 element or one DOM element. Means if that ID is matched, the ID is a find out for any element, it returns one element in the jQuery object collection. If it is not found, it always returns what 0, but do not returns any error. It always returns 0. So if you want to find out, if you want to know whether the elements returns or does not returns, so you can check the jQuery returned object with the length. If length is more than 0, it means there is a one element is returned. If length is not more than 0, it means return the 0 elements, means no elements are found, no elements are matched with that attribute. Each ID value must be used only once within a document. If more than one element has been assigned the same ID, queries that use that ID will only select the first matched element in the DOM. So in your HTML document, if more than one element is defined with the same ID, which is not really good, you should define with the unique ID. But if you have defined either by mistake or by intentionally, and in that case your jQuery use selectors with an ID attribute, it always finds, is always select the first matched element, not go for the second matched element. So a document with more than one element using the same ID is what? Always invalid. If the ID contains characters like what? Periods, nothing but dot, colons, you have to escape those characters with the backslashes. So in your HTML DOM element, if any ID attribute define a value with a dot, with nothing but colon, so you have to escape those dot, colon, nothing special characters with the backslashes. How? We'll see the practically to use that. Now let us implement jQuery ID selectors practically in our JavaScript program with jQuery functionality. Example number 1. The following example finds the what? Paragraph with ID called para1. Means it is going to find out one paragraph which uses an ID of para1 and show their content in the alert box when the DOM is loaded. So as soon as DOM is loaded, whatever the content of one paragraph which uses an ID of para1 is present, that must be displayed to the alert box. So how you are going to use that? So you observe over here. So this is my Visual Studio development environment in which I am having the one HTML document page, HTML page.html. In this, something like this, there is a one paragraph, ID equals to para1, and there is some content available. Suppose I am writing welcome to jQuery video session by Mr. Rakesh. This is my content is available. Now I want find out this paragraph with an ID of para1, and whatever the content is present, that must be available into the alert box at runtime as soon as DOM is loaded. So coming to the head section, you will be writing the library reference script src equal to scripts slash jQuery hyphen 3.1.1.js, type equals to text oblique JavaScript. After that, going to add one more script, type equals to text oblique JavaScript. It's not mandatory you must use type equals to text oblique JavaScript, because by default this HTML document is enabled with HTML5, and for HTML5 default scripting language is always JavaScript. But it is a standard to write, so that no confusion come what kind of script I am writing over here. By saying the type equals to text oblique JavaScript, people will understand it is a JavaScript program with jQuery functionality, because jQuery script file has been referenced. Now in this, what required, $of document, selecting the document, registering the ready event, attaching the handler function, and going to open the function body over here. So what is the requirement? As soon as document is ready, then we need to find out one element paragraph, get their HTML content and display into the alert box. So here where content variable equals to $of one element, start with the para1. So nothing but first of all you have to give the one character hash para1, means it is going to select one element that has an ID of para1, start with the hash character, and after that once element selected, return jQuery object. From that jQuery object I want to get their content. So get their content, we have one method called HTML. That content we are retrieving, that is passing to one variable called content. This content just display into the alert box. So you are writing the what is it, alert of content. So whenever the document is ready, is finding the one element that has an ID of para1, getting their HTML content, loading into the content variable. This content variable value is going to be displayed into the JavaScript alert box. So now save that and try to run this page by launching in a browser. So whenever this page is launching in the browser, once page is ready at the client side, you can see one alert box is going to be present, and in the alert box, right, you can see that the paragraph content is going to be appear, welcome to jQuery video session by Mr. Rakesh Singh, button is what, okay. So this paragraph element has been found and their content we have retrieved and displayed into the JavaScript alert box. Now suppose we have some more requirement, changes the background color of the paragraph to yellow. So what requirement is, as soon as document is ready, I don't want to get the content of paragraph, just we want to apply the background color to the existing element paragraph with an ID of para1. So what you do that, you come over the Visual Studio, we don't require any kind of HTML content to get. This is my paragraph with ID of what is it, para1. So as soon as document ready, select the one element with an ID of para1 and on this paragraph apply the background color. So what you do that, as soon as document is ready, you write $of hash of para1 dot, there is one method available in jQuery, we will discuss in more detail in an upcoming video session. The name is CSS. Using CSS method you can apply any CSS style to your selected element. So what we require to apply, background color, background hyphen color, and second parameter is what, value, that is what, yellow, and going to be closed. So as soon as document is ready, we are going to select one element that has an ID of para1, on that applying the one action called CSS with the CSS property in a background color and their value what is it, yellow. So now if you run this page and you can observe, so once the page is ready, you can observe over here the paragraph is now ready, and on the paragraph as soon as document is loaded, one background color yellow has been applied. So how you are working very smartly and very easily on those elements to perform any action by selecting using the jQuery ID selector. So whenever you need to perform any such operation to one element of HTML document, that element can be selected easily by using jQuery ID selector. Now there is one more example we will discuss. This following example finds a button with the ID called button1, means there is a one HTML document which contain element called button and their ID is a button1. So I need to find out one element called button, nothing is a button 1, and attach the click event handler. And whenever the event handler click is a fire, then some message must be displayed on the button click. So what will do that? Come into again Visual Studio, and this paragraph I suppose just remove that, and this code also I remove that, and in the HTML document body section I write what is it, input type equals to called button. It is one input element type of button. It has an ID called button1, and their value is nothing but display and going to be close. So there is a button type equals to there is an input element type equals to button, and ID is a button1, value is display message. So what I require that whenever document is ready, select the one element button with an ID of button1, attach the click event handler. So whenever it is going to click by the user, then display some message into alert box. So here I write $of hash element with an ID attribute value button1 dot, there is a event going to attach click. Click is an event which always uses handler, is nothing but function. So function body open close. In this just I want to display a message alert, welcome to Naresh IT Technologies video session. Any message you can display. I am just displaying a message, welcome to Naresh IT Technologies video session, whenever user click the button which is selected using the jQuery ID selector. Save it and just run this page in a browser. You can observe there is a button available display message. If I click on the button, there is a click event is going to fire, which is already attached as soon as document is ready to one element that has an ID of button1, and then display the message, welcome to Naresh Technology video session. So click on that, there is a message going to appear in alert box, welcome to Naresh IT Technologies video session. So click on the what is it, okay, the page is finished. So this is what we are able to select one element that has an ID of button1 and attaching the click event handler to the button. Now there is one more option I am going to have here. This example HTML element IDs must be unique. So if you have more than one element on HTML document, so always make sure that the element ID should not be duplicate, it must be unique. But by mistake or by intentionally, even though you have given the duplicate ID, and in that case you are finding the element by using an ID selector, the big question, it is going to raise any error or not error. If it is not error, then which element is going to select. So whenever we have HTML document with more than one element with the same ID, nothing but duplicate ID, in that case jQuery selector is going to select an element with an ID attribute without any error, but it selects always the first matching element and second element is going to be ignored. So you should not provide duplicate ID for more than one element into HTML document, which is the invalid. But even though if it is given, in that case what jQuery selector does, it selects always the first matching element. We will see. jQuery ID selector returns only the first element if you have two or more elements with the same ID. So you look at this example, I have two elements, input element ID button1, input element ID button1, type button, value click me and click button. And I required as soon as document is ready, select an element that has an ID attribute value button1 and on that apply the background color yellow. So I am applying the background color yellow, but the big question is it applies to only first button or apply to both button, or it will not apply to any one button. Answer is always apply to the first matching element. We will see the practically how to use that. So here I have input type equals to button ID button1, value I am giving the click me, and I have one more button just beside, I am keeping input type equals to button ID equals to button1, same button1, means this is also input element type of button, but by mistake or by intentionally we kept ID same button1, and value I am keeping different click button to differentiate that it is another button, but ID by mistake or by intentionally kept by programmer both same ID. In that case what requirement is, as soon as document is ready, I want to apply background color to the button which has an ID attribute button1. So generally what to write, $of hash of button1, right, dot action method CSS of CSS property, that is what is that, background color, and their value I am just setting to what is it, yellow. So you can observe that in this code you are applying the CSS action with the background property and the value yellow to that element which is selected using an ID selector. An ID selector always select 0 or 1 element. So in this situation, do we have any element with an ID attribute called button1? Yes, but what we found that we have the two HTML element, one is a button1, one more is a button1. So in this case it is going to raise any error? No, there is no error. It is always going to find out the first matching input element. So first matching element is a found, and that has an ID of what is it, button1. It is a match. If it is a match, then doesn't require to go for the what is it, second one, right. So now we'll see, we'll execute the page in a browser, right. So you can observe that as soon as document is ready, you are finding the two buttons. The first button applying with the CSS background color yellow, and second button is not applying with the background color yellow, even though both buttons has an ID called button1, but it is always find out the first matching input element. So the best programming practice is always must be careful, more than one element in HTML document should not be defined with the same ID, but even though if it is defined, in that case also jQuery selector is always looks for first matching element which match with the given ID attribute in a jQuery selector expression, right. Next thing is what available, if the ID attribute value contains characters like periods or colons or any other special character. So I said in earlier important point, you have to escape those characters with the backslashes. So observe here, there is a paragraph ID equals to para.1. Earlier we give only para1, but now is a para.1. So if any HTML element ID attribute value contains some special character like a dot, like a nothing but a slash or nothing but colon or any other special character, it has to be escape those character by using two backslashes. So in the here, as soon as document is ready, I want to get the HTML content early in alert box. So $of hash of para, before going dot, right, two backslash has to be given in order to escape this dot and then get the what is it, 1, and get the what is it, their content by using the HTML method. So how will you proceed? So suppose example, I just remove these two buttons and I remove this code also, and I keep here one element, any element I am keeping the paragraph ID equals to para1 is correct, but if user has given .1 then also correct. In that case jQuery selector has to modify it to select the one element which has a para1 by removing this dot, nothing but special characters with the two backslashes. How? We will see that. Here I am writing this is first paragraph is my content. Now what requirement is, as soon as document is ready, get this paragraph which uses an ID of para.1 and get the HTML content and display into the alert box. So directly you are writing alert of $jQuery selector function hash para, right. Now .1 it is not going to select. So this dot is special character has to be skipped by using what, para /.1. So this dot special character has to be skipped from this ID attribute value by using two backslashes, then only this element is going to select. And now write dot what is it, HTML method, and after the semicolon. So it is going to select one element that has an attribute value para.1, in which dot is going to escape by using two backslash characters, and dot HTML is the action method through which we are going to retrieve the HTML content of the paragraph 1 and displaying into JavaScript alert box. Right click, view in a browser, you can observe. You observe here, it is what coming, the result undefined is coming, means still the element is not getting selected. So look at over here, what I am trying to do that. The p ID equals to para.1 is my element, alert $of hash para double slash dot 1 means selecting the one element which start with the para, a dot special character has to skip, so 2 slashes has given that. So in my code what is the problem is available, right. So P here what is it, ID attribute not is, this is the mistake which I have done that. So attribute must be ID because we are going to select the one element by using ID attribute, and I have done by mistake what is it, is. So now P ID equals to para dot 1. So here alert of dollar hash para double slash dot 1 dot HTML. Now save and try to run in the browser. You can see whenever the document is ready in alert box, you just observe what is coming, that this is first paragraph, means selecting the one element that has an ID attribute para dot 1. In that dot is going to be skipped with the 2 backslash characters, then element is found and getting their HTML content and displaying into the what, alert box. So this is the how we are doing that. And now the last thing what we required is JavaScript document.getElementById by ID function throws an error. So as I said, jQuery ID selector internally uses document.getElementById by ID, but document.getElementById by ID function throws an error if the element with the given ID is not found, whereas jQuery ID selector will not throw any error, because element is going to find out not found. So in the return jQuery object with collection, in the collection 0 elements will come. But in the case of JavaScript document.getElementById function, it is always select the element with the matching ID, and if it is not found, it is going to throw an exception because always look for raw DOM object. So how to identify in jQuery whether the element is selected or element is not selected? To check if an element is returned by the ID selector, use the what, length property. So you can observe over what I am going to do that. Suppose I just use this element, I remove, this one I remove. What my requirement is, I write paragraph ID equals to para, not writing special characters, and writing this is first paragraph, or you can see, right. Now as soon as document is ready, what my requirement is, select the element with an ID called para1, right, and on this element apply some style or apply some kind of what is that, color or any style you can apply, or get this element and get the HTML content and display into the alert box. So generally what you do that, you can observe over here, what I am doing that, here I am having the button, type equals to button, value is equal to click me. This button I am going to find out and checking the length is more than 0, it means element is found, else part element is not found. But first of all I want to do using JavaScript, and I want to show the whether error is going to throw or not. So what exactly you required over here? So suppose I am writing the what, where or I am writing the document dot get element by ID of one element, that is what, para1 dot style dot background color equals to color name, what is it, yellow. This is using JavaScript we write. So in order to set yellow background color to the one element that has an ID of para1, how we write in JavaScript, document dot get element by ID of one element which has an ID of para1, here do not use hash, dot style dot background color of yellow. This element also has ID of para1, but suppose here I am giving the paragraph 1. I have given my JavaScript code, select the one element by using the ID of paragraph 1, but there is no element exist on the HTML document with the paragraph 1. In this case it is going to throw any error or not. So I will be showing with any of the browser. I am using Internet Explorer right now and try to view in a browser. You can observe over here whenever this browser is launched, right. So you observe there is a one web page error showing unable to get property style of undefined or null reference, means document.getElementById by ID is returning the what, null object, because there is no element found with the ID called paragraph 1. So it is throwing the exception, this message. I say close this one. But as soon as if you are writing what is that, para1 para 1. Now this element is found with the matching element with the para 1. On this, going to apply the style background color with what is it, yellow. Save it, and if you run into the browser, you can see that the browser is now loaded with the, this is the first paragraph, right, with the background color what is it, yellow color. Means if element is found, then fine. If element is not found, it is going to throw what is it, error. But the same thing if we do in jQuery, even the element is found, fine. Even the element is not found, it is not going to throw any exception. Example, I just remove this line of code and I write using jQuery dollar of hash of para 1 dot CSS method over here we use, and the background color is a property background hyphen what is it, color, and their value we use what is it, yellow. You can observe over here, now this element is going to match with the para 1, yes, but by intentionally I am going to do some mistake. Paragraph 1 means I am selecting the one element by using ID selector which uses an ID attribute value paragraph 1, but in my HTML document 1 there is no any element matched with the paragraph 1. In that case, if I run this page in a browser, right, so you can observe that there is simply page is now available and the HTML element available, but any pop-up window not coming to show the error message. Means it doesn't throw any exception, simply it returns a 0 element object, and on 0 element object cannot apply any style background color. So simple page coming and coming without any background color. So in that situation, if you want to know that element is found, then only something to be happen. If element not found, then something display the my own error message. So what you do that, you will be writing like this, right, if dollar of hash para 1 dot length, because dollar of hash of para 1 always return the what is it, collection, and in the collection maybe returns what, 0 elements or 1 element. If the element is matched with the para 1, returns 1 element, if not matched, return the 0. So dot length is more than what is it, 0, then I just display a message. I am not changing any background color, I am displaying a message to make sure that element is returning or not. Alert of element found, right, and else part, if length is not more than 0, it means no one is matched. In that case, display my own message called element not found, so that a programmer can understand what is happening, because this does not throw any exception. So now dollar of hash of para 1, selecting one element that has an ID attribute value para 1. So big question is, look at the HTML document, do you have one element with the ID of para 1? Yes, it means it is going to found. If found, then this return a jQuery object collection, and in the collection how many elements will come? One element. It means length is more than 0? Yes, condition true. So what message we are expecting in a browser? Element found. This message should not be appeared. So now run this page in a browser and look at that. There is a page is ready. This is the first paragraph, and see in the page one alert box coming, in the message coming what? Element found. So if element found, you may perform some other action over here. Now I do some mistake, I just give paragraph 1. Means I am selecting the one element that has an ID attribute value of paragraph 1, but there is no ID attribute value available with the paragraph 1. In that case, this return the jQuery object collection with the what element? 0 elements. So I am checking length is more than 0? No. So it should go to the else part and display the message element not found. This is your own error message, not by default what browser throw the error message. Save it. Now run into the browser. You can observe that there is a page ready, and on the page displaying message, what is it? Message from web page, element not found. Means it is a user defined message in case if jQuery is selected, do not able to find out any element on the HTML document because not matched with any specified selector expression. So in that case, by our own message to be appear called element not found. So this is the way how we need to work with the jQuery ID selector in a different variation. I hope you have been understood in today's video session what we have discussed jQuery selector, and among the multiple jQuery basic selectors, there are 5 basic selectors. One is the ID selector, right? One is nothing but what is that? Element selectors, all selectors, class selector, as well as multiple selectors. Among these all, we have discussed only one selector called jQuery ID selectors. In upcoming video session, we will discuss remaining other selectors also that come with the part 2 and part 3 and part 4 and part 5 video sessions, right? So thank you so much for watching the Naresh IT Technologies jQuery video session. Keep watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and give your valuable feedback in the form of comment section. Thank you very much.